is Blaire. I'm transgender, and I'm a Republican.
My name is Jamie. I use they, them pronouns. I identify as a queer, non-binary trans femme. I also identify in the A spectrum of asexuality. I believe non-binary is under the trans umbrella.
I completely reject how non-binary people specifically have injected themselves into the trans label. I am a transsexual. There's a medical basis for that. There's a scientific basis for that. And for non-binary, it's really not the case.
You don't know my life. You don't know my experience with
you don't know
dysphoria.
His life. I'm not saying that. You're the one that said that I was erasing you as trans. I am. Like, you're not trans. Like, there's a medical definition of being a transsexual.
I'm going to stop you. Jamie, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
Alright, let's wrap this up. So, brief disclaimer before we begin. There is, in fact, a medical, psychological basis upon what my personality could be determined as that of an asshole. This is grounded in science, so accept it. I would like to apologize in advance to my partner, Sweetie Cheeks, and to the audience for what trouble I might be getting us into here. What else? This video is for specific peoples. Obviously, it's going to be for the YouTubers that we've been responding to. Blaire White, Anti-Ordinary, Rose of Dawn, and kind of the heavyweights in the transgender YouTuber arena. Blaire, of course, we are responding to directly here. She's going to be the top dog in that category, as far, in my opinion, at least in my mind. But it's also for a very specific person that calls themselves Bad Habits that I ran into in the comments section in one of Blaire White's videos. I believe it might be this video that we're responding to, wherein we were having a conversation, I suppose you could say, as kind of like a debate or an argument, but I guess more just a one-sided conversation wherein I tried to express, what I think and feel about the situation, and they respond by attempting to belittle me in some way. So, if you're watching, I firmly request that you actually do watch the entirety of the video, make an attempt at empathizing to some extent, try and understand my perspective. Trust me, I understand yours. Now, also, I should like to express apologies to everyone for having used the term tranny in the first video. I apologize. I've spent a lot of time involved with the transgender community, been exposed to that term a lot. I spent a lot of time hanging out with them, hanging out at the club, becoming intimate with transgender people that they throw that term around, kind of like the N-word with black people, I suppose you could say. They throw this tranny around. That's a common vernacular. It's what I was exposed to. It rubbed off on me as a slip of the tongue. I apologize. It was inappropriate for me to have used it in the video. I was granted a pass for the most part to use it in that context, but it was inappropriate here, and I'm sorry. Anyways, I should like to reestablish my position as regards gender and sexuality. Firstly, gender, there's going to be male, female, and then you have the option to transition from one to the other. As Sweetie Cheeks had mentioned, there's going to be people who are born with, deformations. Hermaphroditic people, hermaphrodites, are going to be born with, say, scrotum and a vagina or what have you. And I suppose that could be considered, biologically speaking, a sort of a fusion of the two, but more that's a deformation. But where transition from one to the other via, hormone treatments, surgical procedures, you're effectively, say, for example, the transgender female, she's a male biology, but presenting as a female. This, in my mind, is a fusion of the two, and in effect, is in fact an evolution of our sexuality. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what I think of it as a positive development in some ways. Sexuality. There's going to be homosexual, heterosexual, and bisexual, and this pretty much covers everything. If you want to say that there's go out and stretch and say that asexual is a sexuality, but it's really not a sexuality, it's the lack of sexuality, firstly. Second, it's circumstantial, as is every other sexuality that you bring into play beyond the initial three. They're circumstantial. The purpose of sexuality in and of itself is to imply an established innate disposition. So these other sexualities, they come and they go. They are not even well defined. They are not, certainly not a permanent, like you are not born with this and it's not the way that you feel just innately. This is something that is a development, a circumstantial development. It's in your psychology. It's not sexuality. And this is something I get a lot when I see people defining it. You know, for example, sexuality, suggesting that sexuality is a psychological issue. No, psychology and sexuality, they're two different areas of interest. So, I don't know. I can say that, you know, my sexuality has been almost entirely circumstantial. Growing up, I was heavily, at an early age, I was very sexual. I was heavily into the ladies. I did, experiment on both sides of the fence, but ultimately I was really into the ladies. I fell in love many times, and when I met Megan, we got together, we got married, we were together for years. I had eyes only for her. She was the light of my life. There's nothing else that attracted me. The sex was terribly fucking incredible. Sorry, sweetie cheeks, but it was an excellent relationship. There's nothing wrong with it, but afterwards, after we parted ways, I did in fact wind up, having relations with men at times, which I did not really enjoy. I don't find the male body attractive at all. I kind of find it grotesque, actually, but I think the female body is the most magnificent and beautiful creation life has ever produced. And yes, that includes transgender females. The most beautiful thing in the world. But, and I did wind up hooking up with the transgender community, and myself and other operatives of the initiative, we worked alongside the transgender community, helping them to gain acceptance, helping them to educate society. We took a stand in that, and we were a big part of the fight for their freedom, and we won. The initiative worldwide, our people helped the transgender community become accepted and educate the world and fight to gain their freedoms and their acceptance. And, as I said, I spent a lot of time hanging out with them. I got to know some of them, still friends with some of them now, and I still like to go down to the club and hang out whenever I can, but these are, the transgender community, or transgenderism, if you want to call it that. We fought for that to be accepted as this third sex, as I stated. Now, when you start making up other sexes, creating genders and sexualities in your mind, and then, addressing them in reality as though they're actual presentable realities, that there's something that you are in some way physically presenting that somebody else must honor as though it is a living reality in the world, what you are doing effectively is hallucinating. That's simple psychology. So when you can have that, you can have these hallucinations. You can feel that way all you want. You know what? I'll honor it as you're feeling, for sure. That's fine. You can feel that way. What you cannot do is demand of other people that they accept your hallucination as reality. When you start inventing sexualities and genders, you're imposing this hallucination upon society, suggesting that we should reject our understood reality, our established reality, insisting that these imaginary sexualities are in fact what defines your purpose, what gives you reason for being, is this cause that you have with these sexualities. That's called worship. That's what we call worship. And should any of us, other peoples, decide to refute this hallucination, this imagination that you presented, we are in fact damned if we disagree. We're transphobic, we're labeled transphobic, we are to be dismissed and rejected and disrespected. This is what we call a religion. And when you start imposing religion upon people, you're stepping into our territory, and you are in fact making a big mistake, and you don't see the mistake. That's the problem. You don't understand what you're doing. You think that you're fighting for some justifiable, reasonable cause, but really you are damaging everything that is supposed to matter to you. in reality, I mean, we have parents imposing this gender crisis upon their children. You want to tell me that a 4-year-old child just suddenly up on their own figured that they are this imaginary sexuality you've invented, or that they're a new gender that nobody's ever heard of before? No, that doesn't happen. Sorry. What's happening is that this idea is being imposed upon them, projected upon them. And in reality, what you are doing with these extra genders and sexualities, and this suggestion that you should take offense to anybody who disagrees with your idea of it, you are dividing peoples, and you're sabotaging peoples. You're effectively removing yourself from play. So you seem to think that this is like your game, that this is a gender crisis and it's your game. It's not. This is our game. It's psychology. You're playing our game, and you're losing, and you're sabotaging the field. So when you start creating these masks, these layers, hiding yourself from reality, refuting the real world, and removing yourself from play, this is a problem for us, see, because we know that you were born with this activist spirit. You're presenting this activist spirit, this restlessness, this want, this desire to rearrange the system, to change things up. That's an indication that you're one of our people, that you are an operative of the initiative. I don't know if you guys have any belief in any sort of spirituality, but you were born into this for a reason. That's why you feel that way. We feel that way too, but we're directing it at what matters. You are being misdirected with this fixation on this gender crisis. You're being distracted. You're being taken out of the game. You're taking yourself out of the game, and we need you in play. We need people like you. We need your help here where it matters, in the real world. But you're removing yourself from it, and in fact damaging it at the same time. Your entire life now, with this perspective, this understanding, is ruled by fear and hatred. Fear of not being accepted. Hatred towards anybody who doesn't accept it. We're here to get you out of that trap. That's what we're here to do. That's our role. That's what the initiative is for. To get you out of that trap so that you can stand up and make a difference where it counts. Now, again, I don't know if you guys have belief in spirituality, or even if you're atheists or what, but I mean, I'm not suggesting that all of you hold the same belief system, although it seems like you probably do. And I don't know what you believe, but what we know from general ideologies of spirituality and mysticism, and in fact from physics and quantum physics specifically, we know that life reflects what you project. Psychology tells us the same thing. Life reflects what you project. And what you are projecting right now is damage. You're projecting yourself as broken. And that's the feedback that you're receiving. That's the projection that everybody else is receiving. That's the reception that you're placing in the game. And we know that, I've dealt personally, I've had a few students. I myself have suffered abuses, so I understand the position. I have had students who have suffered abuses, in early childhood, as I have, and for all intents and purposes, they're somewhat, in ways, justified in having this damaged or broken perspective, this damaged consideration about them. But what's happening now with this, especially with this gender crisis and this fracturing of our society, is you spreading this essentially psychological illness around, where now people who have no justification, have no abuses, suffered no abuses, they just accept this damaged ideology, this broken kind of projection, because it's just spreading about, and you're projecting it everywhere, spreading it to others who have. We have people in the media now, as was with the one video that we posted. In case Blaire happens to actually be watching this, we did three other videos before this, wherein we used clips from your videos and we spoke on them, and one of which was these people saying that transgender woman's biology is a female biology, it's not a male biology, shit like that. They're on the media, public service just flat out lying through their fucking teeth, lying to themselves, lying to you, lying to everybody, and trying to convince people to believe this lie. We have this 60-year-old man who identifies as a 6-year-old girl. The family adopts him. They have him watching their children. What happens when he molests those children? That's on the trans community. This is now under the trans umbrella. It's unacceptable. We have the video that we responded to directly here where Blaire White's talking to this other genderqueer whatever person, and they're, I'm sorry, I don't want to seem dismissive, but what the fuck are they talking about? Yeah, this other person says that believe they're under the trans umbrella, and Blaire rejects it, and I back her 110%. She says, I reject that I totally reject the idea that you should be considered under the trans umbrella, and fucking A right. They have no business there. You have no place there. You don't belong there. You want to have this ideology, at least contain it. There has to be a perimeter here that shows a difference between transgender community and this, for all intents and purposes, crazy community. It doesn't really know what they're doing, can't figure anything out for certain. She says that she rejects that idea that she should be accepted, he or she should be accepted on the trans umbrella, and the moderator shuts her down. And then they're going to talk about her erasing her truth, or erasing her identity. Meanwhile, they are silencing Blaire and erasing her fucking identity right there. Now, where it comes to this, Blaire and I may disagree to a certain extent as to whether these imaginary genders should be considered real or accepted as a functional reality in some way or another. Obviously, we're going to disagree on that. But also, there's another instance wherein Blaire said something in one of her videos. I don't have time to put it in this one, a clip from it, but she implies, at the very least, if not says, that she doesn't believe a person who accepts their born gender could identify as the other. A person who identifies as the other gender cannot accept their born gender. I have a huge disagreement with that, and I feel it's a discrepancy that needs to be cleared up. So, Blaire, I do in fact hereby challenge you formally to a debate on that matter. I wasn't fucking around in the other video. I'm formally challenging you, madam. Digital slap to the face. Not slap with that glove. Dual slap. I would never hit you. You're a beautiful, beautiful lady. My God. Sorry. Anyways, yeah, I think that's about all that I have to say for now. Before we kind of wrap this up, let's get to addressing the actual person of interest as regards the video that we are responding to. I present to you the one and only Contrapoints.
My second guest. Well, what the hell are you? You're transgender, you're a man, you're a woman, you're an attack helicopter. What's your deal? Well, Jackie Jackson, my, as you say, deal is I don't like society forcing me into tiny little boxes. Okay, but are you a man or a woman? Just tell me. Well, why does it matter? Why do you have to know? Maybe you should examine why it is you feel the need to fit everyone you meet into these little categories. Jackie Jackson. Well, can I at least ask your name, or is that now considered cisgender imperialism? My name is Baltimore. Baltimore what? Baltimore, Maryland. I'm sorry, your name is Baltimore, Maryland? It is among my names. Tiffany, what do you make of this? Look, Jackie, I'm going to be completely real with you. I am a transsexual. That means I have a very specific mental disorder called gender dysphoria. I was born a boy, but I have a female brain because of a hormone imbalance in the womb. This is a real psychiatric disorder that is verified by science and requires hormones and surgery for treatment, or else I literally cannot function. It is not a fashion statement. It is not a trend. It is not an easy way to feel special and oppressed. It is a very difficult condition to live with. I'm dying inside.
Okay, so what you will have just seen is a clip from an episode of Contrapoints. Now, it's very difficult to tell what Contrapoints' stance is on the issue, though I did watch some of there. I don't know if it's a he or she. Blaire was referring to them as a he, so I'm going to feel free to refer to them as a he if it happens to pop up. I'm sorry, I can't really afford to watch every word I use like that to ensure that I'm not offensive to somebody, because that's absurd, and there's no good justifiable reason as to why I should have to do that. Anyways, from the videos it's difficult to tell, because it could be like he's being sarcastic, he's joking around. From that video it seems as though his views align with mine even, but again, he could be joking around, and as I said, I watched some of his debate with Blaire, and it's still difficult to tell what his views are. I think that he was defending the idea of, I guess he's a big proponent of the non-binary status, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a gender. Obviously, it's not a gender because it's the lacking of gender, even if it did exist, which it doesn't. So, we're talking to this. I'm sorry, but Soul Mechanics is here to talk about the reality of what's really happening, the actual happening reality. You are what you present yourself as being. You are unable to present not gendered. You can't do that. It's one of the few things a human being cannot do. Anyways, later on in that video, after that clip, they talk about the concept of trans-trenders. That's what the video is actually called, trans-trenders. And this is something that I've spoken to before. Trans-trenders, people who are, I see them all over the place, and working with people over Facebook and whatnot due to social media network. I see these people all over the place. People are going to be male one day, female the next, and they're going to be neither, then they're going to be both, and they're going to be, to change their name left and right, but they're under the trans umbrella, and you can't criticize them for their behavior. They can treat people like fucking garbage, and you can't say a damn thing to them about it, because if you disagree with them, you're transphobic, and then you have tranarchists coming after you, like I got that threat from somebody. That was a friend of mine, too, who threatened me. A friend of mine who was coming down on me because I used the previous name, not the first name, just the previous name that somebody had used at one of these trenders. Now, again, as I stated in the video we spoke to about that particular incident, I could be wrong. Who knows? They could absolutely verifiably be a man, then a woman, then a man, then, this name and that name and that name, and every one of them could be perfectly valid. It's very unlikely, but I could be wrong. I'm not going to launch any accusations. What I'm saying is I see these people all over the place, and in the video they're going to say, well, he asks, why do you have the sexes, or why do you label yourself this way? And then he says, because I don't like society forcing me into categories. But that's what they do. That's what you do. These non-binary, these people with these specific, absurdly specific gender types, they're going to force you to categorize them in this absurdly specific manner. And if you're unable to, you're transphobic. He says in the video, he asks him about it. What is your gender, or even what is your name? I think yes, I can't remember now. But his response was, why do you need to know my gender? Why do you need to know my sexuality? And the reason being, because you'll fucking punish us if we don't. If we get your fucking pronoun wrong, you're gonna treat us like garbage. You're gonna go cry about it. Get fucking real, man. I'm sorry. I don't want to have to be an asshole, but fuck me. This is ridiculous. You'll punish us if we don't know specifically what to call you and why, and if we make a mistake, you're going to cry about it, and then the rest of your friends are going to fucking punish us for being transphobic when you're not even transgendered. You do not belong under the trans umbrella. You're just crazy. I'm sorry. Sometimes you gotta be harsh. I'm gonna say that, you're telling us that if we don't reject our established understanding, then we are phobic. transphobic, wherein you are not transgendered. You have no business using that label. You're misusing it. You're damaging the actual transgender community, and that's personal to me. That's a personal issue to me. It fucking pisses me off. I'm not going to stand for it. Not on my watch. Tisk tisk. No, no. I cannot speak on behalf of Soul Mechanics. I'm not speaking on behalf of the channel. This is a personal issue to me. I'm not speaking on behalf of Sweetie Chief. She does not share this opinion. She will not share any such opinion because she's afraid of insulting or offending our niece who's dedicated to this ideology. But I'm not. And I hope she sees this, honestly. You need to get hurt sometimes. You need to be uncomfortable. There are reasons why you need to get damaged. For real. I don't mean somebody says the wrong pronoun and you cry about it because it's hurt you so deeply because, you know, you suffered some small abuse 10 years ago or your mom like yelled at you or something. You know, I was fucking beaten to shit. I was tortured. Psychologically and physically. And, you know, I've been through shit that you wouldn't even fucking believe could happen to somebody. And I'm going to look at you with a smile on my face and say, you need to toughen the fuck up. You need to be hurt sometimes. There are reasons why you need to be broken, really broken, so that you can rebuild yourself stronger. You need to be put in that terribly uncomfortable, damaging situation so that you can find the strength in yourself to be the person you really are. And that's what we want to see. We want to see all of you out there stepping up to the plate and shining as the beautiful, brilliant, resilient, amazing people that you truly can be, the owner inside. Let that owner out. You own this life. Don't be subdued by this ridiculous social programming. Do not allow for yourself to be submissive. If you want to be a sub, like BDSM or what fucking have you, fine, that's fun. I've tried it before. I'm not that into it, but it's alright. But where it comes to life and this fight that we're in, and we are in a fight, don't make no fucking mistake, you are in a fight for your life right now. All of us. This world is on the fucking brink and we need to turn it around together. You are in a battle right now. The conflict of eternity, of the biggest fucking war in history is happening right in front of your face, and you're missing out on it because you've got these masks in front of you that you're wearing. I'm queer, I'm bi, I'm pansexual, I'm this and that and the other thing, and I identify in the A spectrum. Wake up, man. You need to wake up. You're in danger. We're all in danger. And sometimes you need to be hurt, you need to be offended, sometimes you need to be put in your fucking place so that you can find out who you really are. And my job, my role as a director in the initiative is to do my very best to ensure that you, all of you, every fucking one of you, do in fact get what you need. So, that's what I've got to say for now. I'm sorry if it hurt your feelings, but that's probably what it needs to be doing. Tila Salai. Terve Uni Siari, Namaste. Okay, brief post-clip disclaimer speaking to the nature of my position, my feelings on the matter, why I am so emphatic about this particular topic. Obviously, not only am I the unofficial illegitimate guardian of a spoon-gendered young person who also identifies as Smushy Ninja, but I am in fact the property of a proud transgender cat, feline, sorry Adelaide, cat is derogatory, I meant feline, transgender feline. But all humor aside, very seriously, anybody who's kept up with the channel, and I'll post links in the description for the videos that speak on this matter if you're interested in understanding what I'm talking about, but anybody who's kept up with the channel will know that there are in fact a variety of reasons for me to be so engaged in this matter, and for me personally to identify so closely with the transgender community specifically. Now, I should like to say, at least, I don't want to dive into it because we don't really have the time here, and it's already been explained, but I can say one thing that, people such as Blaire, for example, are the sort of character that I never got to play. and I admire them. I look up to them in ways. I heavily appreciate their experience, and I want for them and their experience in their community to be honored and respected appropriately. Now, where it comes to this particular movement, as it were, with the non-binary and all these different imaginary genders and whatnot, what we have here is basically people associating with this ideology that, they have this idea, this concept that they're trying to promote, and effectively, in order for others to accept it, it's required that they reject their established understanding. It's required that we reject our established understanding in order to accept your understanding. And essentially what you're saying is that you have justifiable reason to be offended and hateful towards us if we do not accept it, thereby rejecting our own reality in lieu of yours, because you say so, without any basis for, any sort of a scientific or realistic basis for it whatsoever. And what we have now is children growing up in a society wherein this is so heavily promoted that we have kids out there identifying with this, pretending to identify with this, and in many cases associating with this so closely that they convince themselves that they actually do functionally identify with this movement, out of fear of being rejected for not accepting it. And this is essentially what we'd have to call a kind of a Stockholm syndrome, where we have people actually legitimately identifying with this in their psychology, believing that it's a part of their natural sexuality because they're afraid of being rejected if they don't. And basically you're saying that you have, again, justifiable reasoning to be offended if people do not accept it, wherein if they do not accept it and reject their own reality in lieu of yours, then they are to be punished for it. That's the understanding that you have. That's what you're promoting. That's what you're spreading. And I'd like to say that, honestly, you're not presenting yourself as non-binary. You're not presenting yourself as transgender. You're not presenting yourself as any gender or sexuality. Essentially what you are in ultimate reality presenting yourself as is a bunch of fucking assholes. A bunch of whiny assholes who are just basically what we'd have to consider to be generally crappy people for the most part. I'm sorry, I don't mean that all of you are crappy people. I'm saying that's what the presentation... I put on the thumbnail for the first of the initial 3 clips in this series, I put a pin that said something along the lines of, I want to do homework like I want to do people. Not at all. That's what you're promoting. That's the sense, the being, the feeling that you're promoting is I don't want to be, I don't want to even be involved with humanity. That's what everybody's feeling because of this. That's what you're feeling. That's what they're feeling on both sides of this imaginary argument. That's what everybody's beginning to feel. And I'd like to note that I'm not speaking on behalf of Soul Mechanics here. I'm not speaking on behalf of the channel. I'm not speaking on behalf of Sweetie Cheeks. If you guys have a problem with me for saying this, any of you out there, you can get to me. There are links in the descriptions to Facebook groups and whatnot that you can get to me directly on Facebook or Messenger or what have you. Do not involve anybody else. Megan, her family, my family, anybody involved with the channel. The channel itself is not involved. This is my personal opinion on the matter for personal reasons. So they are not, nobody else is in agreement with me on this. I stand alone here on this issue. And I'd also like to say that Soul Mechanics in and of itself and the initiative at large is not to be regarded as or associated with this woke community, this woke movement where people are calling themselves woke because they identify with this imaginary reality that's precisely the opposite of what being woke means. We promote lucidity, actual lucidity, this being woke because you accept and identify with an imaginary concept. This is an existential nightmare, and it's a political and existential nightmare that we're becoming grounded in because of this. And you're setting back, you're setting the initiative back, you're setting humanity back, you're most specifically setting the transgender community way back. and we can't have that. It's unacceptable. We don't have time for this shit. We don't have time for you to be taking all the progress we've made and throwing it in the trash because you have some alternative idea and you think that it's trendy and cool to accept it. No, we can't have that. You're setting everybody back. This woke community in and of itself is setting us all far back, and we can't have it. We do not have time for it. I personally will not accept it. I will not hide my opinion. I will not run away and cower because these people are threatening. You can threaten me all you want. I'm not going to shut the fuck up about it. I'm going to do everything I can to alter it because it needs to get done. So anyway, for Blaire, should she actually be watching this, or for Contrapoints even, but for either of them, Blaire, I would like to recommend that you do in fact accept my challenge, because I believe there are kind of hidden issues packaged into that topic of inquiry that we could address and bring to light and make sense of in the public eye on a larger, greater platform for a greater audience that would be very beneficial for all of us. So I would like to heavily recommend that you do accept my challenge, and Contrapoints, if you have a problem with what I'm saying, you're welcome to talk to me too. I think we should be openly discussing these things logically, rationally, as human entities. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Kila Salai, Teriyuni Siari. Namaste.